I am a patron of Andreas because I came across his videos online and that's how I learned about Bitcoin. So that's how I got introduced to Bitcoin.
I'm out tonight at a social event organised by Andreas as part of his Patreon support. We just had a few drinks in a pub, which is a Punch Tavern, downtown London. So it's been a really fun evening to meet a lot of like-minded people.
We should support the work Andreas is doing. He's doing so much in getting new people into Bitcoin and into Bitcoin education.
He's a great teacher. He can explain very complex topics in an easy to understand way. He's very honest, very precise, technically prepared, and intellectually honest. I think is his best characteristic.
He brings such clarity to really complex subjects, which is Bitcoin, and the industry around it.
He has been a very, very good inspiration for me, and every Bitcoin I'm giving to him, it will be very well used in helping others understand Bitcoin, and I think it will improve the world at some point.
Being a patron, I get to meet Andreas, and that's why I love being a patron. I'm going to continue being a patron.
I think it's just a good thing. If you're interested in learning new things and also want to support the Bitcoin community, then you got to be a patron.
Being a Patreon makes you feel special. You can attend to his live Q&A sessions. You can meet him at happy hours. It's really great, totally worth it. I'm very, very enthusiastic of being a Patreon.
I'd like him to be able to produce his great and valuable content in the future, free from advertising, and just with the help of his Patreons, and that's why I'm supporting him on Patreon.
Hello and welcome everyone to this New Year Extravaganza 2021. I didn't really name it an extravaganza. My staff named it an extravaganza, and of course they gave it that name long before we had some very, very weird New Year extravaganza, which I can't possibly top. So instead, it's not going to be an extravaganza. It's just going to be a New Year live stream. We're going to take some questions. We're going to answer some questions. We're going to make some jokes. We're going to have some fun. Welcome everyone. Now, I really I'm looking forward to this live stream because I took a vacation. I took a vacation from the internet. I haven't been online in like 3 weeks. I haven't even checked the price in like 3 weeks. You know, we never really talk about the price. I decided not to check it until this live stream. So since I haven't been online for 3 weeks, let's see what the price of Bitcoin is doing. Holy Chuckie Cheese! 44! I'm retiring. Okay, I'm just kidding. Yes, I'm sure you all want to talk about the price, but and we will. We will. We'll talk about the price. We'll talk about lots of different things, but really, I want to talk about other things. I want to talk about the technology. I want to talk about education. I want to talk about how we handle markets that have apparently gone completely insane. So we will talk about all of those things instead, and I'm looking forward to all of your questions. If you didn't notice, the code is 2021 Aantonop, 2021 Aantonop, and you can use that on slido.com to ask questions. Now, if you see a question that's close enough to yours, you should vote for that one instead of asking it again, because if you ask it twice, you split the vote, right? And then, you know, if you split the vote, then there'll be complaints and people will be like, oh my God, the votes were miscounted, there was fraud, stop the count, Dominion machine stole the vote and moved it to the other question, you know, all of that. So instead, if you see a question that is close enough to what you want to ask, vote for that one instead of asking it twice. All right, why don't we just dive right into the Q&A and see what's happening. Our first question comes from Anonymous. Do you think crypto is in a bubble? Why or why not? Do you think crypto is in a bubble? Yes, it's in a bubble. Yes, Bitcoin is in a bubble. Yes, the entire crypto space, currently valued at $1 trillion, is in a bubble. Ethereum's in a bubble. Bitcoin's in a bubble. Everything in the crypto market is in a bubble. But does that really matter? And what do I mean when I say that? Okay, so when we say a bubble, that doesn't mean there's not value behind it. That doesn't mean that it's going to go to zero. That simply means that we have seen some extreme growth. And when you see in any market a price going like this, usually shortly after, it will at some point go like that. And what we've seen in Bitcoin specifically is we've seen this happen 5 times. So for those who have been around for a few years, this is the 5th time Bitcoin has done this. And the conversation is always the same. Everyone in the Bitcoin space, everyone who already believes in Bitcoin, and this goes for every cryptocurrency and blockchain out there, immediately says, look, see, the price proves we were right. And everybody outside of the crypto space says, it's a bubble, it's tulips, it has no intrinsic value, it's a craze, it's a fad, it will pass, it will crash, you'll see, it will go back to zero. And of course, neither of those really has much meaning. Saying, look, the price proves what we've been saying doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't think that markets behave in rational ways. Sure, there are good reasons why Bitcoin is drawing attention, but what's reflected in the price is exuberance and enthusiasm as much as it is fundamentals. Much more than it is fundamentals, in fact. Just listen to the people who are excited about buying Bitcoin or buying any cryptocurrency right now and see what they're talking about. Look at whether they're talking about the importance of this technology for the future of humanity, the possibility of banking the unbanked, expanding economic opportunity, reducing economic inequality, opening up the financial system, disrupting monopolies and oligopolies, changing the way governance works in societies, disrupting the wealth pipeline that seems to concentrate the wealth in a very small sliver of the population. No, of course not. That's not the conversation that's happening. The conversation that's happening right now is the price went up because the price went up. And that conversation is a conversation of fear of missing out and greed. And that conversation isn't very healthy, because inevitably what happens is newbies who come in with this mentality get wrecked. And newbies are going to get wrecked again if they panic. Although in the long run, you make losses only if you panic sell, whereas if you decide to hold, there's a chance that the market returns after the bubble reverts. And the bubble, when it reverts, it doesn't revert to zero. In fact, what we've seen in the previous 5 bubbles is that it ends up being quite a bit higher than it was at the previous high. So the long-term trajectory is such that those who take a long-term view can use this as a savings vehicle. But it's not about just a savings vehicle. It's about understanding why you want to be part of a new economic system, why you want to be part of an economy that is open and borderless and available to everyone, that has characteristics of censorship resistance. So what is our job in this bubble? It's to convert speculation into education. It's to shift the focus from number go up into brain get full, I guess would be the slogan. Brain get full. Let's educate people about why these technologies matter, and not just about the possibility of enriching. Because easy come, easy go, right? When you see this kind of very rapid rise, very often it is followed by a rapid decline. And that's when the people who are anticipating forever profits will get wrecked. So, speculation into education. This is not a fun time for those who are in this industry for the long term and are looking to focus on education, because there's so much distraction and so much screaming and hollering about the things that don't really matter. Also, you'll see that a lot of people will come out of the woodwork and try to persuade you that if you follow their advice, they will help you get rich faster. The most dangerous phenomenon here, and we see this in the YouTube comments, you'll see it in the comments on this channel, probably on this video too, is people suggesting that if you join their Telegram channel or send them a WhatsApp message, they will invest for you. And of course they won't. They'll steal your money. No one who has the ability to invest for the long term needs your capital, and you don't need their advice. No one's going to make you a profit in this or any market. The people who trade for a profession are certainly not interested in your $200. They might be interested in doing over-the-counter trades for a giant investment in the millions, hundreds of millions, or even billions, but they're not really looking to pick up retail investors on YouTube and help them achieve guaranteed profits. Just send me a WhatsApp message. Be very, very careful. This is the time when the scammers are everywhere. So, Bitcoin is in a bubble. And so is every other cryptocurrency. In fact, most of the stock markets, bond markets, and other aspects of the economy are in a bubble. This is what happens when you have cheap money flooding the world everywhere. And some of that cheap money is being invested in hard money. But the bottom line is we are in bubble territory. And that can be an opportunity, but it also can lead to a lot of broken bank accounts and a lot of broken pockets. So be careful out there and don't get scammed. All right, let's see what else we have. Hi, Andreas. Would you please share your advice on general internet security setup, meaning which browser you would recommend? Would you recommend using VPN, and which one? Any advice on this topic would be highly appreciated. Thanks. This question comes from Marin. Marin, thank you so much for that question. Security nowadays is very much more about the browser than it is about the operating system. Because the vast majority of work you do on your computer is about, on any device really, is about the browser. So it's really important that you carefully choose and use your browser and take advantage of security capabilities within your browser to protect yourself. So let me tell you a few of the things that I do. The most important thing I do is I use a script blocker. There are a variety of these out there, extensions that you can install on a browser that by default block all JavaScript and all other code execution in the browser window unless you specifically allow it. These extensions come with names like Script Safe or No Script, and you can find them for all of the browsers. I mostly use Firefox as my main browser, and I also use Chrome as a secondary browser. I'll explain why in a second. So for your browser, install a script blocker. This does two things. One, it reduces the amount of ads you see, but that's kind of a small side effect, a minor benefit. The main thing it does is it breaks websites, which at first is very, very annoying because you're trying to visit a website and it doesn't work. The page won't load, or it will load partially, or things won't play. And you have to go through and painstakingly tell it, no, this page is okay, and that script, and that script, and that script I want to load. And you go through this process. It takes a few days, weeks, so that the websites that you visit frequently become trusted, and the scripts that they run, the main scripts that they run, the minimum set you need to get the functionality out of a website becomes trusted, and then those websites work. But when you visit a website you've never visited before, you go in with all of the shields up. None of the scripts load, and you have to decide selectively whether you're going to load new scripts. This is especially important when you see a phishing attack. Because in the situation of a phishing attack, you think you're going, let's say, to the Ledger website, but in fact you're going to another domain that is pretending to be that. And of course, the fact that that domain breaks, whereas the real site doesn't, is the first hint you have that something is amiss. Your script blocker will have never seen that specific domain and therefore will block all of the scripts. And that will protect you from a variety of potential exploits that could be delivered through the browser, as well as give you a heads up that you are not visiting the site that you thought you're visiting. While to the eye, a misspelling of a website domain name may not be noticeable, to a script blocker, of course, that is taking a hash or fingerprint of the domain, it is absolutely noticeable. So that becomes an extra protection. In addition to that, I also run a couple of other extensions on my main browser. One of those extensions is a fencing extension, a sandboxing extension that sandboxes Facebook and all of its properties. It keeps them in a separate container, and I don't remember what it's called. I can look it up and we can put it in the description, but what that allows you to do is keep Facebook, its cookies and scripts and everything else, from being able to spy on other activities you do across the web. It keeps Facebook in its own container, separated from my operating system, and it doesn't allow it to inject cookies and notice what things you're looking at on, say, a news website, or what things you're shopping for on Amazon or something else. So that's containment. Then I also run an extension called HTTPS Everywhere. HTTPS Everywhere, which is an extension created by the Electronic Frontier Foundation that turns on SSL encryption on all pages. In fact, it doesn't let you visit a page, even if that page allows you to visit it, without SSL. You have to manually go in and make it introduce an exception for pages that do not have a certificate and encrypted connections. And this protects you from snooping things like compromised Wi-Fi hotspots or public hotspots that you might be connected to, or simply your internet service provider spying on your connections. So that's called HTTPS Everywhere. On all of my computers, I usually also change my DNS provider, and I pick a DNS provider myself, so I'm not using my internet service provider's DNS. That prevents DNS hijacking. That's a more advanced topic. It's not really related to the browser, but you can do things like use a more secure DNS provider. There are a number of them out there that you could choose to use instead of your ISPs. Most people use Google's, which is 8.8.8.8. But you know, Google itself is a spying organization. However, it's less of a spying organization than your own service provider, for example, Comcast or Verizon. You can also use Cloudflare's DNS, which, if I remember correctly, is 1.1.1.1. Finally, I use a cookie blocker, and I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Privacy Badger, also an EFF product, and that will prevent cookies from being used, especially third-party cookies, from being introduced into your browsing sessions and spying on you. So those are all of the things I do. Now, as a result of doing all of these things, my browser tends to be a very secure environment, but that also means a lot of the websites websites break. So in order to sometimes gain access to websites that have a lot of scripts and are complicated and constantly breaking, like for example a banking website or something like that, or a website that I don't visit often, but that I need to do something that involves a script or a form and I can't quite get it to work, I will use a clean browser. So I have one of my browsers for daily use, and that's Firefox. And then I have Chrome, which I use only for browsing that requires me to go in without any security. And I use that only for specific functions. A couple of things that I do there. That browser has no extensions, and it doesn't remember anything. All cookies are deleted. All data is deleted after every session. So as soon as I close that browser, everything's gone. It doesn't remember anything. I clear all of the browsing data every time I use it. So that browser is to go into, let's say, the IRS website that requires some complex scripts, and I can't access it through my well-protected browser. I'll go in, I'll do my job, and then I'll shut it down, and it will wipe everything and not remember everything. It also doesn't interact with my day-to-day browsing activities, allowing to put cookies or take cookies away. All right, so those are some of the things that I do to protect my browsing. Hopefully this advice is useful to you. Thanks for that question, Marin. Antonio asks, "Hi Andreas, I foolishly bought my crypto on Robinhood. I want to withdraw it, but the issue is volatility risk, since it would take several days to withdraw it and rebuy it on an exchange to store it on my hardware wallet. What could I do?" Antonio, this is a problem that we've discussed before, and it's a problem that a lot of new users are having. Robinhood is one of several exchanges that do not allow you to withdraw cryptocurrency to your own wallet. PayPal, of course, being another very well-known one. And I just want to make sure you understand the implications of this. Now, we've talked before about the general idea of not your keys, not your coins, and why it is important to take crypto off of exchanges. But what if you made the mistake that Antonio made and you bought it on an exchange that does not allow you to make a withdrawal? Antonio, I'm going to say something shocking here. Don't withdraw. Hold it for 1 year. And here's why. If you withdraw right now, the withdrawal, which in order to withdraw, what Antonio is suggesting doing is selling it for dollars, moving the dollars through their bank to another exchange, moving the dollars back in, or euros or yen, I'm not sure what their fiat currency is, and then buying Bitcoin again on the other exchange and then withdrawing it to a hardware wallet. So that way the Bitcoin they have, they get control of their keys. If you do that, you will incur a taxable event for capital gains purposes. The conversion of Bitcoin back to fiat in the US, but also in many other countries, is a taxable event. You will be responsible for capital gains. You will have to pay capital gains taxes on that. Worse, if you incur capital gains on something you held less than a year in the US, in other countries it might be different dates, you pay short-term capital gains, which in the US at least is taxed at your income tax rate. That means you could pay 25%, 30%, who knows what your income tax rate is. I hope it's big because you're doing really well. You're going to pay a lot more than long-term capital gains tax rate on the difference in price between when you bought it and when you sold it. And given how the market's been behaving lately, that could be a lot of money. Here's the worst part. You sell it, you move the dollars out, you go somewhere else, you buy Bitcoin, and you put it in a hardware wallet. You've created two taxable events. You've sold, taken capital gains, then you've rebought, which set a new cost basis, and you've moved it into a hardware wallet. Now, you are responsible for some taxes, but you no longer have any dollars. So what happens when you have to pay those taxes in April in the US it will be April, you're going to have to sell potentially some of your Bitcoin, creating another taxable event, again short gains, short-term capital gains, and you've created a world of pain. Now, it may be that this has nothing to do with you. You may not be in the US, you may not have a gain. You may have just bought it on Robinhood, in which case if you sell it and buy it again, it's not a big deal. There are some accounting exceptions where if you sell and buy the same thing within a very short period of time, it's not considered an additional taxable event. But that's something you need to discuss with your accountant. So while in general I recommend removing your cryptocurrency from an exchange and putting it into a hardware wallet and taking custody of your keys, you need to be very careful if you've put yourself into this situation accidentally, not to make a bigger mess by rushing to do that and creating all kinds of tax implications. Discuss this with your accountant. Every place is different. All right, we are going to have an additional discussion about this, and I believe it's next week. Next week on the live stream, next Saturday, we're going to be talking about different classes of ownership of crypto. So stand by for that one, and I'll talk about it in the upcoming events, but it relates very closely to Antonio's question. Anita asks, hello Andreas, what is your opinion on the rollout of Strike in 200 countries? Is it not just an improvement of the legacy banking system using Lightning as a rail? Seems to be fully KYC, KYC stands for Know Your Customer, and not censorship resistant. Great question from Anita. If you don't know what Strike is a system that allows you to use your debit card in order to buy something with Lightning. So it's basically a traditional financial system to Lightning Network bridge. And it's now rolled out in 200 countries. I didn't know that. That's fantastic. And yes, it is a platform that requires KYC. It requires you to provide identifying information so that you can link your debit card. And obviously it does not have censorship resistant, nor is it a system that is open to everyone. And in addition to that, it will link at least the origin of your Lightning payment to your personally identifiable information. So is this an improvement? It's basically an onboarding system. I would call this the Coinbase of Lightning. How's that? You know, in the early days of Coinbase, there really weren't that many alternative mechanisms or well-run exchanges. So they pioneered a US-based, properly regulated exchange that got you onto Bitcoin. And once you were on, then you could use all of the technology to do lots of things. But of course, it has and continues to have some major privacy implications. And it becomes a honeypot for KYC information. And this is dangerous, of course. But at the same time, it also allows a lot of people who don't know how else to get on to the system to get onto the system. And this is what Strike is as well. It's a system that allows people to get on board Lightning with minimal friction at the expense of some loss of privacy and under a regulatory system. I expect that companies like Strike, just like Coinbase and others, will get increasingly squeezed by the regulators, who will impose more and more and more and more and more and more requirements, trying to make them fit into the whole of the pigeonhole of banking as understood as a surveillance and control mechanism, and making it harder and harder for them to really put up any competition for traditional banking systems. And That may or may not be a good thing for the ecosystem, but the bottom line is right now, think of it simply as an on-ramp and make sure you understand the price that you pay by using such an on-ramp. There are two ways to get on board these systems. Education, where you go the hard way. You learn and work and study in order to be able to do this when you're ready with the full amount of privacy that you can learn about. And it's much harder, it's much more complicated, and it will take you a lot longer to get on, and only a few people will actually onboard that way. And the easier way, which is to succumb to a regulatory regime and give away your private information. So you can pay in privacy to get on faster and with less technical education. Whether this is a good thing or not depends on what you're trying to achieve with this technology. All right. I'm going to jump in the chat now and see what's happening. Toilet paper, Coinbase, plunger, bucket, LOL. That's the first thing I saw on my screen, which was a series of emojis by Peter. Here we go, Peter. Cheers to you. That was funny. Oh, some people are doing an emoji storm. We have 1,000 people on? Why? What are you doing here? Listen, the really great and interesting live streams was 2 weeks ago. And okay, we are clearly in bubble territory. Usually I get 300 people for my live streams on the average Saturday morning. So the fact that there are like 3 times more right now, 1,000 people on. Let's see. What else have we got going on here? Ryan says, nice glasses. Andreas, thank you so much. I would like to think that they are a matter of fashion, but they are in fact a matter of progressive decrepitude and my inability to read things on my screen, even though I have 77-point fonts, because it's only 2 feet away from me, and in order to read it, it has to be 17 meters away and in billboard size font. So progressive decrepitude, not fashion, Ryan. Am I going to debate Richard Hart? No, I'm not. Bye-bye. Okay, welcome everyone new. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. I hope you're having fun. I hope you're enjoying this engagement. I hope you're learning something. If you want to ask me questions, you can use the Slido. And we do these every Saturday in different formats. Some of them are talks, some of them are Q&A, some of them are retrospectives, some of them are live premieres of new videos. And if you want to ask a question, you need to ask it in the Slido. Unless I'm going to make a snarky comment about your question because it popped up in the chat, I'm not actually going to ask a question. If you just paste it 17,000 times in the chat, you will get blocked. All right, let's see what else we're going to talk about. Here we go. This question comes from Lucia. Hi Andreas, what's your opinion on various stablecoins? Besides MKR DAI, are there any that match our community-focused, fair and equitable ethos? Are there any stablecoin projects that deserve our support? That's a great question, Lucia. If there are, I don't know of them. Right now, the only decentralized stablecoin that I know of is DAI, which is a more than 100% collateralized debt instrument DeFi project that is truly decentralized, that allows you to pledge various assets, including ETH, but also US denominated assets like USD coin and other backed stablecoins that have bank accounts behind them, as well as other crypto assets. And this collateral is used to produce the backing, the collateralization for DAI, which is a US dollar pegged stablecoin. It's the only one I know that is decentralized. And it's not 100% decentralized. Let's not kid ourselves. It has a governance process. That governance process has some peculiar centralization points, let's say. But it is the most decentralized, and everything else is much more centralized in the most important way. The most important way in which DAI is decentralized is that the collateral is held on chain. The big problem with stablecoins that are backed by assets that are held by custodians, banks, bank accounts, dollars in bank accounts, which is the case with all of the other US dollar denominated stablecoins, is that those bank accounts are very, very, very susceptible to seizure, freezing, theft, embezzlement, under collateralization, transparency attacks, etc., 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 etc. Whereas with a stablecoin like DAI, the collateral is on chain. It cannot be seized, it cannot be frozen, it cannot be stolen. There are some risks with vulnerabilities in the code. The risks are different, but they're not counterparty risks. They are software vulnerability risks. And so from that perspective, it's a very interesting project and really the only one. Next question comes from Giovanni. Hi, Andreas. How is mastering the Lightning Network coming along? I'm loosely following the GitHub, but it would be great if you gave us a brief summary. Thank you so much, Giovanni. Mastering the Lightning Network is a book that I am currently writing. Now, you may have seen on my left hand here, I have a bunch of books on this table. Now, there are currently 5 books on this table. In about 6 months' time, there's going to be 6 books on this table. And in addition to mastering Bitcoin and mastering Ethereum, I'm currently writing a new book for O'Reilly Networks, for O'Reilly Media, which is Mastering the Lightning Network, the third in this mastering series, a book which is going to be for technical people, a technical college-level textbook for software engineers, for computer scientists, but with an accessible few chapters in the beginning, just like Mastering Ethereum and Mastering Bitcoin, where you can read the first few chapters and get a good handle on this technology, and perhaps even skim the rest if you're interested. Mastering the Lightning Network is going to be accessible for the first 4 or 5 chapters, and then we'll get increasingly technical. Now, we've already delivered the first 5 chapters, and they're in a almost done state, although they are undergoing some additional changes. We're currently working on the second half of the book. There's about 5 more chapters to go. And I'm hoping to get it delivered by early Q2 and into the pipeline for production. Like my previous books, this is an open source book, meaning that from the beginning you can watch, as Giovanni is doing, loosely following on GitHub. If you want to go to github.com/lnbook, Lightning Network book, LN book, you will be able to watch that right there. And you can see us writing. You can also contribute, comment, review, suggest, complain. Why not? And we will take all of that information and produce a book. You can read it, of course, for free. And when it's printed by O'Reilly Media, you will still be able to go on GitHub, find the exact same book that is being published by O'Reilly Media and read it for free and share it with others. After about a year, we intend to open the license even further to allow derivatives and translations. This book is currently being written in a collaboration between 3 authors. Myself, Lalu Oshintoken, who is the Chief Technology Officer of Lightning Labs, and René Picard, who is a data scientist and one of the best teachers in the Lightning Network space. And all 3 of us are working on this project together. Please come join us on the GitHub. So, Giovanni, to answer your question, Q2 2021, which is 6, maybe 8 months late from the original plan for delivery. Really sorry, a global plague happened. All right, let's see what else. Yes to Crypto asks, not taking sponsorship or using affiliate links helps boost integrity of your message. However, some of us want to help spread the message and also benefit from things like affiliate links. What are your thoughts on these, on referrals, etc.? Yes to Crypto, I actually do have a referral program on my website, which you can find in the workshop section. And this is a referral program whereby if you refer people who buy a workshop, you get a discount for your next workshop. And I don't remember exactly what that discount is, but it was quite a generous discount. I think if you sell 5 workshops, you get 90% off or something like that. No, after you sell 3 workshops, you get 90% off. My producer is furiously writing notes on pieces of paper here to remind me what the actual numbers are. So yes, you can use that. It gives you basically a referral URL, and anybody who visits my website with that referral URL will have a same site cookie placed in their account that allows them to be identified as someone you referred, to give you credit. If they then go ahead and buy a workshop from the shop, then you get a credit. And after 3 credits, you get a 90% discount coupon that you can apply towards buying a workshop or any of the ebooks from the shop. All right. So since we're going to be talking about affiliates and sponsorships in the shop, why don't I show you what we've been doing on the shop? So this is the shop, aantonop.com/shop. 2 new products that you may see here on the bottom left. Dominando el Bitcoin, programando la cadena de bloques abierta, segunda edición abierta. That is the Spanish edition of Mastering Bitcoin, the second open edition in Spanish. And crypto asset inheritance. My slideshow is set to skip after 12 seconds. I apologize. This is very annoying. Let's try that once more. And crypto asset inheritance planning, which is a book by Pamela Morgan, and is a pioneering book on how to make sure that your assets are actually inherited. We have 2 workshops that you can use on the shop as well. The Introduction to Bitcoin, which is a free workshop. It's got more than 85 5-star reviews, and we actually approve all of the reviews, no matter what the rating is. And Choose Your Wallet, which is a workshop that helps you figure out how to choose a cryptocurrency wallet that you can use based on the criteria that are most important for you. You've heard me say not your keys, not your coins. Well, how do you choose a wallet to put your keys and your coins? And that's the question I'm helping you answer. And you can read the reviews and learn more at Aantonop.com. You can also use the discount code, not your keys, not your coins, NICK, that's how I pronounce it, NICK, for 10% discount on the second workshop. All right, so let's go to another question. Did you make any New Year resolutions? Will you share them with us? No, I did not, but I am currently preparing articles of impeachment for a congressional resolution. I don't really do New Year's resolutions. I try to really focus on daily resolutions and, simple things like don't drink too much, don't eat too much cake today, maybe work out a bit, go for a walk, things like that. Simple, achievable things. although I do fail on the do not eat too much cake. Our next question comes from Jax. Is it necessary to move to a new seed phrase periodically? The scenario would be if the seed is unknowingly compromised, but the funds not yet stolen due to it being protected by a passphrase. I would say no, because there is a very significant risk that you will complicate your backup strategy so much that you will end up losing funds without the seed being compromised, because in fact the backup that you have in the secondary location isn't the one that you thought you had, and you didn't update it when you did update the other location, etc., etc. This is how people lose money. I would suggest that if you have a 4 to 6 word passphrase that is composed of randomly selected English words, all lowercase, separated by spaces, that provides sufficient passphrase entropy. Now you have to back up your passphrase, but you can back it up in a different location. You could also put that in a password manager and keep it safe, as long as the seed always stays offline and recorded on a durable medium. I also suggest that to protect against the concern that you have, which is that your seed is unknowingly compromised, is you can't prevent it 100% from being compromised. No matter how secure you make the location where you store it, compromise is always a possibility. No vault is unbreachable. But what you can do is try to address the unknowingly part. And that's where a technology solution called tamper-evident systems comes into play. So a tamper-evident system is a system that doesn't prevent you from breaking in, but simply allows you to know when someone else has broken in. And I believe my producer will very discreetly hand me a tamper-evident system to show you now. Some of these technologies are really simple. A classic one, for example, written about by one of my favorite authors, Cory Doctorow, is to take glitter nail polish and use it to paint a seal over a container, and then take a digital photograph of the arrangement of the glitter particles at high resolution in that glitter nail polish. If you can't open the container without breaking the seal, then you have effectively a tamper-evident system. Just for fun, Cory Doctorow also suggested using an astrophotography application to compare the constellations that appear in the glitter with your original sample, because that software does the exact same thing that you're trying to do. This is a tamper-evident bag. These are used in the US to collect cash from cash registers, for example, from restaurants, from bingo games, but also from church donations. Now, this is not tamper-proof. A 2-year-old will get into this in a matter of seconds. This does not prevent someone from breaking in. This is not a security mechanism. This is an evidence mechanism. This bag has at the top a removable, peelable seal. And when you peel that and seal that, it cannot be opened without leaving traces behind. The bag cannot be cut open. It cannot be frozen or heated. The adhesive cannot be peeled off. It cannot be attacked with acetone. You know, this isn't, of course, 100% impermeable and 100% tamper-evident. You know, given the sufficient resources, someone else can break into this. Of course, the obvious and easy way to do that is to get the manufacturer of this bag to print you an identical bag with the same serial number and barcode, and then simply forge the signature on the front, and then replace it with that bag after you tear it open, which of course you can do if you're the CIA. But if you're not the CIA, this will prevent someone from taking a peek at your seed. What I do is I put my seed material in here, even if it's paper. This also prevents against moisture damage, which is really useful if your seed is stored on paper or if it's on steel. I will then write on the front of this bag the date that I sealed it and put my signature, and then I'll take a photograph so that I have the serial number and exactly what the signature and everything on the front look like, and then seal it. And this is a great mechanism to prevent tampering with your seed. We have a follow-up for this. The follow-up question from Anonymous is, Andreas, should I generate a new seed if I lose one of my previous seed backups since I am using BIP39 passphrase protection? I assume when you say lose, that means that you have lost track of one of the backup copies, but you still have a backup. If you have no backup and the only place that seed exists is in a live wallet, then obviously you have to generate a new seed and move that money after you've backed up the new seed, because at this point, if the only place the seed exists is on your hardware wallet or software app device, any damage or compromise to that and you've lost your money forever. So you can't make a new backup. A lot of people don't realize this, but if you have a hardware wallet and it's generated a seed from you, it will never show you that seed again. If you don't have a backup and something happens to that hardware wallet, you've got a problem. But I assume that's not what you're talking about. I assume what you're talking about is, let's say you generated a seed on a hardware wallet or a software app, you made 2 backups, and then one of them went missing. And it probably just got thrown away, or it got shredded, or it got washed in the laundry, or it's currently being digested inside your dog. And you're worried, like, what if it wasn't my dog? What if it was the CIA? And now, can they get in? Well, it depends. It depends on how strong your passphrase is and how much amount of money is stored on that seed. So if you're talking about, maybe a couple $1,000s and you have an 8-word randomly chosen passphrase, space separated, the amount of entropy in that is sufficient to protect that from being compromised. So not going to get brute forced, not a chance. If, however, you have like a 4-word passphrase or a simpler passphrase, and it may not be the strongest passphrase you've ever used, but it was strong enough to prevent casual compromise of your seed, then maybe just for peace of mind, I would generate a new seed, move everything from the old seed, and move along. However, I would still keep the old one. You never know when there might later be an airdrop or fork, or someone goes and accidentally reuses an old address you gave them and deposits money into something that was controlled by the old seed. Always keep that, just in case, as a backup. And this is one of the reasons why I said don't keep replacing your seeds, because you would have to keep all of the old ones and then you end up with a mess. So I don't think you need to regenerate the seed if you have a decent sized 6 to 8 word passphrase and not a huge amount of money on it. The effort it would take to brute force that passphrase is quite significant. However, if you have a lot of money, or you have a weak passphrase, or you have very good reasons to believe that someone might get access to the passphrase or has the resources to try to brute force it, then sure, change seeds. Let's see what else. Andy asks, some people like Michael Saylor say that the rate of inflation in the US is not 2%, as the government claims, but more like 15%. Can you speak a little to your view of the actual inflation rate? I'm not sure what the basis of that claim is, but I would suggest that certainly the inflation rate is not 2%. 2% is the consumer, what is it? CPI, Consumer Price Index, yes, which is an artificial metric that includes certain things in a certain volume-weighted mix that corresponds to a broad measure of inflation, but it does not include a lot of things that affect your average family. So certain goods have declined in price significantly. For example, laptops, smartphones, the cost of certain types of groceries, for example, have declined in price. However, the cost of things like a college education, healthcare, childcare, etc., have increased dramatically. And when it comes to potential investments, the cost of assets, for example, the cost to buy a house for the first time home buyer, or the cost to make an investment in the stock market, etc. Now, there you're looking at asset inflation that is quite extraordinary. So from that perspective, the average family faces, in practical terms, an untenable economic situation where we're not experiencing 2% inflation. We're experiencing a lot more. Is it 15? I don't know. When you're looking at this from the perspective of a corporate treasury, I'm sure that's a whole different situation. But if the idea is, sure, it's 2% unless you want to send your kids to college and protect them from dying from a disease that is treatable, then that's not saying much, because from what I know, most parents and most families do want to give their children an education and access to healthcare and good schools and provide for their security and give them the ability to have affordable housing in a safe neighborhood that isn't in a flood zone. So all of those things have become much more expensive. Our next question comes from Katya. What is the biggest regulatory threat for crypto in 2021? I don't know. I don't really think that there are many serious regulatory threats for crypto. I think that increasingly governments are going to start waging war against fungibility. So let me pick that. I think we are seeing a war on fungibility, and there's a related question that I might answer to this. Fungibility is the property of money where you cannot distinguish between units, and there is a concerted effort by governments around the world to force various providers of Bitcoin-related or other crypto-related services to do things like block access to specific addresses, prevent transactions from being recorded that spend from specific addresses or to specific addresses, and create centrally managed block lists of addresses. And that is dangerous. That is the fungibility issue, and I think that is one of the biggest regulatory threats. Let's look at a follow-up question that's on exactly that point. Anonymous says, Blockseer is going to censor transactions. Did I pronounce that correctly? Blockseer? Sorry, no, Blockseer. Blockseer is going to censor transactions by filtering out OFAC. OFAC is the Office of Foreign Asset Control or something like that. Blacklisted wallet addresses, and that will be used as an example to force on other mining pools, perhaps inciting retaliation. What do you think? Balkanization? So here we have a pool that is trying to play the game of the banks. And the game of the banks is to make a devil's deal with the government that says, I will play by your surveillance and control regime in order to ensure that you will prevent any competition. So the thing here is that it's not that Blockseer is saying we will create clean blocks for OFAC, clean being a propaganda term, meaning that do not have the transactions that our war criminals have decided other war criminals can't use. essentially what they're saying is we're going to apply OFAC blacklisted wallet addresses. But of course, as soon as you open the door for that, a couple of things are going to happen. First of all, before long, every other government in the world is going to want to add to that with their own block list. And then you get into the fungibility wars, where it's a back and forth. And of course, then it becomes a geopolitical game of controls, and you're back to exactly the place we are with the traditional financial system. The reason Blockseer is doing this is because what they're hoping is that the government will then prohibit hashing power, especially hash power in the US, like the big hashing infrastructures that are being built in places like Texas, that the government is going to force those companies to only work through a mining pool like Blockseer. Essentially, the government is going to hand a monopoly license to Blockseer and prevent competition from companies that are not willing to play this game, which will of course lead to more mining pools that are willing to play this game versus some that are not willing to play this game, etc., etc. None of this actually prevents the posting of transactions with these addresses. As long as there is some hashing power that is not following these blacklists, they can create a block that has these transactions, and they can be enticed to do so with an appropriate transaction fee. What it does is it increases the cost of doing business for these, but only once, because of course you can make sure that the transactions you include mix the coins enough as to make it a broader problem. Bottom line is that this is the typical monopolistic financial system that we have in the past. It's not going to work because Bitcoin addresses are not like bank accounts where there is a cost to creating a new one. This is a game of whack-a-mole where it is impossible to keep up. But this is mostly symbolic. It's about government exerting control over the operations of the mining system. And while it fails in the tactical goal of preventing spending from these addresses, it succeeds in the strategic goal, which is to make sure that miners and mining pools self-select into two categories: those who are friendly to government regulation and are willing to betray the principles of open networks, and those who are essentially unfriendly, also to soon-to-be-known criminal, terrorist, pedophile murderers, that's what the government's going to call them, who are going to preserve the open network principles. You get that kind of game. It's the classic game that's been played geopolitically for decades. Nothing new here. It's not going to work. All it is going to do is it's going to encourage technologies like Bitcoin to evolve their fungibility. Which leads us to the third related question, which I need to find here because it was... Is there any privacy development happening to Bitcoin like Monero-style properties? Well, what are some Monero-style properties? Well, one of the Monero-style properties is, of course, that the addresses are encrypted and so are the amounts. And ring signatures make it impossible to see who is spending and who are they spending to. So, are there any privacy developments happening like that in Bitcoin? Not directly. Although some of the developments in Bitcoin can open the door for these types of privacy technologies to be introduced to Bitcoin. And of course, the Schnorr signature, TapScript, and Taproot set of upgrades that are coming in 2021 create the infrastructure necessary to introduce more and more of these privacy technologies. One of the reasons you don't see that in Bitcoin so far is because it hasn't been necessary for Bitcoin to differentiate on the privacy fungibility front. Bitcoin already has a significant differentiation from many other systems, and that is, it is the most robust sound money from a monetary policy. And it also has significant liquidity, the most adoption, etc., 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 all of these advantages. Now, what could possibly change in the environment of Bitcoin to force Bitcoin to start differentiating on privacy? Maybe a mining pool trying to play footsie with the CIA? Yep, you got it. That's exactly what's going to push the next step in the fungibility wars. Things are going to get interesting over the next few years. All right, I'm going to take a sip of coffee and look at the chat and get back to you with my last question of the day. But why do one last question when we can do 10? We're going to do speed Q&A. Are you ready for speed Q&A? 10 questions in 10 minutes. Let's do this. Is there a way to make a replace by fee transaction with blockchain.com wallet? I don't know. Probably not. Blockchain.com sucks. Don't use it. What is a layer 2 scaling solution for Ethereum? Is there any threat from those to Ethereum? There are 3 or 4 layer 2 scaling solutions for Ethereum. These are essentially come in 3 different varieties. Payment channels, which are things like Raiden, I believe, is the name of the equivalent to the Lightning Network. A similar technology which involves a sidechain called Plasma, and I may have these two mixed. And finally, a technology called rollups, which comes in a couple of different varieties, but basically allows a smart contract to summarize many transactions using a rollup technology, which is similar to how we summarize transactions in a Merkle tree, and may also include a zero knowledge proof, in which case it's called a ZK rollup. So yes, absolutely, there are some layer 2 technologies. Let's see, what else? Would you recommend using multiple wallets to HODL? No, I wouldn't. I do recommend using 2, possibly 3 different wallets in order to separate tiers of storage according to how often you use them. I have a petty cash hot wallet on my smartphone which holds a very small amount of money that I can use to buy something quickly, a couple $100 maximum. I have an operational wallet, which is a hardware wallet that I have accessible to me for making transactions 2 or 3 times a week to run my businesses for my operational budget. And then I have mnemonic phrases in cold storage on Steel that are not even on a hardware wallet that I never use, never touch, which is my cold storage. Hot, warm, cold, 3 different tiers. But I don't have more than 1 wallet in each tier because that complicates the backup strategy. What is going on with Tether? Is there something we should be concerned about? What is going on with Tether, I think, is the same thing that has always been going on with Tether. I think that Tether is not a systemic risk to the cryptocurrency industry. Whether Tether itself is a risk to itself and its investors, that's a whole other question that I'm not going to touch. What are your thoughts about the Lightning Network? My thoughts about the Lightning Network are electric. They're static, they're charged, they are shooting off bolts of power in my mind. The Lightning Network is a very interesting technology. I'm writing a book about it. It enables, today, with wallets that you can go and download and use, it enables transactions that take a second or 2 to run, after which they are completely final and settled. And those transactions can be done for 1/1000th of a penny or less in terms of fees, and you can spend tiny amounts all the way down to 1/1000th of a penny. So fast, private, secure, and cheap. The Lightning Network is fantastic. Check it out by installing a wallet. A couple of good ones that I would recommend right now: Breeze, Phoenix, you could use those. What are you most looking forward to in 2021? My COVID vaccine, which I will be taking at the soonest opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the end of the pandemic for everyone on this planet. So I'm hoping all of us are able to get a COVID vaccine, or at least at the point that we reach herd immunity. How was the VR holiday party with community builders firm Patreon? It was awesome. We had our biggest party yet. We had 16 people in the channel. We had some great dance music playing in the background, some EDM that was DJ'd by Burst Up, one of my patrons. We had 16 people who joined. Most stayed for the entire time. We had some great conversations. We had some laughs, and it was a lot of fun. We're going to be doing it again. We tried to do about one VR happy hour party per month. Do you think the Coinbase IPO and things like the Bitcoin ETF can steal Bitcoin market cap and its potential to grow up? No, not really. I think that, if anything, they're going to provide more publicity for the Bitcoin experiment and drive more people into thinking that Bitcoin somehow became legitimate, put on a suit, and stopped hanging out with the weirdo anarchists in the back room. Of course, we all know that Bitcoin is still hanging out with the weirdo anarchists in the back room and is only wearing the suit as a disguise. But the bottom line is that while there are some risks to the centralization of capital under holders like this, it doesn't really affect market action negatively. Will you be updating your book Mastering Bitcoin to cover the changes in libraries since publishing? We have pull requests coming in on Mastering Bitcoin all the time, but those pull requests are happening on GitHub and are not updating in the print edition. Doing a new print edition is a whole business. So if you are finding inaccurate information or obsolete information in the print or ebook edition that you have, go on GitHub, where you will hopefully find the latest information. And by the way, if I have it wrong, please do a pull request and help me fix it. I will be doing a third edition of Mastering Bitcoin, and I will be doing a third edition of Mastering Bitcoin when the Taproot, Schnorr signature, and TabScript changes have been incorporated into the chain and are due for activation, or maybe have been activated. And at that point, I'm going to do a third edition to cover those topics in advanced transactions. Would you consider doing a Mastering Decentralized Exchanges next? Probably not, because that's more of a product category than a technology, and it would be very, very broad and cover lots of disparate technologies that move very, very fast. So by the time I started writing it, it would already be obsolete. But thank you for suggesting that. How can I verify a mobile wallet uses the secure element of Android? Can you give me some examples of wallets that use it? No and no. I don't know if you can verify that it's using it, or that it's using it correctly, or that it's using it without bugs. So you will have to believe the claims being made by the people who write that wallet. There are some wallets that have deterministic builds or verifiable builds, and you can find information about that online. But if you're really concerned about whether the wallet is using a secure element, you should be using a hardware wallet. A smartphone with a software wallet, that even the one that uses the Android secure element, is not secure for cold storage. It is a hot wallet. You should use it for petty cash. And so I would suggest using a hardware wallet instead if you're concerned about this. A secure element is nice. You certainly don't want your wallets to be easily hacked. But anything that's sitting on an online operating system that is being used for general purpose computing, a general purpose operating system that is connected to the internet, by definition, secure element or not, cannot be used for cold storage. And I think that's all of them. Let me just go through and check and see if we have any more questions. I think I've answered all of these. Oh, no, got another one. How is the famous headline stored inside of the Genesis block? The famous headline, of course, being January 3rd, 2009, Chancellor of the Exchequer on the brink of second bailout for banks. This headline. It is stored inside the Coinbase transaction of the Genesis block. Every block has one transaction, and that transaction is the Coinbase transaction, the one that generates new Bitcoin. A Coinbase transaction, unlike a transaction that has both inputs and outputs, is one that only has outputs. And in the input side of the Coinbase transaction, you can put, or rather the miner can put, some free-form information. It's often used as extra space for nonce and other things. And in the Genesis block, Satoshi used it to put a text message in there. So that's how it's stored inside the Genesis block. Vishma asks, hi Andreas, what are your suggestions for novice developers entering the Ethereum blockchain for developing dApps or smart contracts? This book, Mastering Ethereum, is available on GitHub. You could start there. It gives you a pretty good roadmap on how to start building dApps. I hope that helps. Love the shirt. Thank you so much. I love it too. It was actually a gift by one of my patrons who I met, and it is a traditional Indonesian design. It was given to me when I visited South Korea, and one of my patrons came from Indonesia just to say hello. Anita says, I deleted WhatsApp and Facebook on my phone. How do you use Instagram and Facebook without compromising your privacy and security? Can a keylogger read the data in my password manager? All right, that's a couple of different questions. Congratulations on deleting WhatsApp and Facebook on your mobile device. That is smart. Mobile devices have a lot of sensors, and those apps allow far too many permissions. Facebook Messenger is even worse, and if you have them on a mobile device, they can get a lot of information about everything you're doing. How do I use Instagram and Facebook without compromising privacy and security? I use them on a separate browser with a sandboxing extension that keeps them completely contained, and I do not use them on a browser that I use for my daily browsing. Also, I don't use them on mobile. I only use them on a desktop, which by definition has fewer sensors. It doesn't have a built-in GPS. It doesn't have a lot of other information. And I also use it through a VPN. So all of those things to protect the basic information about my privacy. Can a keylogger read the data in your password manager? Well, it can read anything that you type, sure. It can also potentially grab screenshots of anything that you display on screen, and it can also possibly capture the clipboard when you copy and paste things between that, but it can't read everything that's in your password manager just because it's in your password manager. Let's see what else we have. That's it. That's it. I did it. I did it. Speedrun Q&A. Well, thank you so much. I hope you are enjoying these live stream videos. Here's a brief message. This year we managed 12 million views on the YouTube channel, which has more than 600 ad-free videos. So if you're enjoying this kind of stuff, share, like, and subscribe. Upcoming. On January 16th, I'm doing a new talk, which is about the different classes of ownership. On January 23rd, running a node, how to run your own node, and what the benefits of running your own node are. It's mostly going to focus on Bitcoin, but I am going to cover anything else you want. I run nodes on a variety of blockchains, and so if you're interested about that, and it's also going to cover Lightning, so running your own Lightning node, running your own Bitcoin node, running your own Ethereum node, running your own Monero node, whatever it is you might want to ask about. And on January 30th, we have the monthly live stream, which is the open topic Q&A. If you want to find out about these in advance, if you want to get notifications, then please subscribe on the channel and turn on the notifications by hitting the bell icon, and that way you will not miss a thing. I will see you again next week. Thank you so much for joining me. Happy New Year to everyone. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for the great questions. Thank you for chatting in the chat room. Thank you for those who joined as YouTube members in the chat room. And as always, thank you to all of the people who support me as community builders with a monthly subscription on Patreon. Thank you again for all of your support in making it through this very, very difficult year. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye, everyone.